Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your Jack Kemp Foundation President, Jimmy Kemp.
Hello and welcome to the Kemp Forum on Expanding Opportunity. I'm Jimmy Kemp, president of the Jack Kemp Foundation, and this day is one that is about you all. It's about community leaders and business leaders coming together and doing the hard work that needs to be done in the trenches every single day. It's about community leaders and business leaders connecting with our elected officials and making sure that our elected officials understand what's going on in your communities and what they need to do in the US Capitol, in the state capitol, in the city buildings, where critical decisions are made that affect the futures of us all. I want to welcome you all here and the people who are watching via live stream. We appreciate everyone's time and interest in these issues. This venue is an incredible venue. We're in the Pilsen neighborhood in Chicago. This is called the Garrity, and they have a motto here. That motto is to bring dreams and bold imaginations to life. And that's what this is about today. Bringing dreams to the table and reaching for what our imaginations can come up with. Expanding opportunity, creating a future of aspiring individuals who will carry this great country well into the 21st century. Now, we're in Chicago, and it's an incredible city with phenomenal potential and a lot of challenges. The history of Chicago is amazing. Now, just for a minute, imagine this. There are 50,000 people in a great hall. This isn't quite 50,000 people, but 50,000 people in a great hall that's been put together in 2 weeks. But the year is not 2018, it's 1860. And here in Chicago, the 1860 National Republican Convention was here in Chicago in a building that had been put together in 2 weeks called the Wigwam. I'm not a Chicagoan. I don't know if I got that on Wikipedia or wherever. Can anybody affirm that that is correct? That's correct? Okay, thank you. So the location was at the corner of State and Market, and it was a US attendance record at the time for most people in one gathering. And there were people, 466 delegates, there were 21 candidates, there were something called candidate howlers in the audience, there were 900 members of the media. I guess a candidate howler was the equivalent of Twitter people. And the howlers would howl for their candidates, right? And the convention back then was not staged the way conventions are today. And so the first day went by, they had a vote, and it was locked. There was no consensus winner of the nomination. The second day, the same thing happened. The third day, on the third ballot of the day, a new name rose to the top in 1860 in the National Republican Convention as the Republican nominee for president. It was a favorite son of Illinois, and that person was Abraham Lincoln. The party of Lincoln started here, and while we are a nonpartisan 501c3 Jack Kemp Foundation organization, it's important to understand the history, the Republican and the Democratic parties, and what parties are for. Parties are to serve the people and to compete ideas. Now, fast forward 120 years to 1980, and I was a 9-year-old boy. My dad was a US congressman named Jack Kemp from Buffalo, New York. And I walk into the convention center in Detroit, Michigan, and I was greeted by signs that had my name, Kemp, 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 all over the place. My parents didn't prepare me for that, and I wondered how people knew that I was coming. I realized it wasn't about me, that actually my dad had been doing an awful lot of work every day when he went to Capitol Hill and to Congress, and that people wanted him to be Ronald Reagan's running mate. And so the howlers of the day had these Kemp signs, and that was a really cool moment for me. And I'll never forget that that caused me to listen to my dad more carefully during that speech that I heard that evening. And what he talked about then is the mission of the Jack Kemp Foundation. He talked about the American idea. And we started the Kemp Foundation in 2009, after he passed away, to develop, engage, and recognize exceptional leaders who champion the American idea. You all are champions of the American idea, described in our founding documents, that we have inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that the condition of your birth does not determine the outcome of your life. And when that's not the case, we have got to do a better job, wherever it's not the case, that people don't have that investment and promise of the American idea. My dad believed, and we believe, and you all believe, that we have to go to every corner of the country, the city, rural, wherever, and we've got to bring that message of opportunity, of responsibility, and accountability. That's what the Jack Kemp Foundation is about, and I believe that's why you all are here today. So, we've got a lot to get to. I want to thank a few people. We have a number. There will be some, we want this to be a conversation. We have a number that can be texted during the day for questions when that's appropriate. I don't know if we're going to put it up now or later, but you'll see a number to text and an email address, and we want you to be able to engage with the conversation that's going on. We want you to network with people. You see we've got a networking area over here. We've got booths of community organizations who are doing great work in Chicago. We want you to know their stories. We want you to engage with them. We want you to be a part of this conversation, and I'll say this at the end of the day, but right now I want you also to know that we'll send you an email after this event, and there will be a short survey. We want to stay engaged in Chicago and across the country to help bring the promise of that American idea. I couldn't be up here and not recognize my mom, Joanne Kemp, who is sitting right over here to my right, your left. Mom, stand up. My brother Jeff is right next to her, Jeff Kemp. And Jennifer Kemp Andrews, my sister, and my son Jonah Kemp. You know, it's family that's the root of the American idea. That's why it's so powerful, because all of us want opportunities for our children, and you invest to create those opportunities. And we want a government that does the same. We've got a lot of people who are going to be talking about that today from across the aisle, and I want to recognize our sponsors who have been incredibly supportive to bring this day to fruition. First of all, our forum underwriters, Sylvie Legere and Todd Ricketts. Thank you very much, Sylvie and Todd. Charles R. Schwab also is an underwriter. We're grateful for him. I'm going to go through the list, and you can hold your applause until I get through everybody. We had Citadel as a co-chair, the Slimp family. Ron, Remy, and Sarah are here. We're grateful for them. Wang Sheng America. Pin Ni has been a great friend. Our benefactors include Genworth and Standard Communities, Robert Kerner from Standard, and from Genworth, Lynn White. We appreciate our supporters, the Illinois Association of Realtors, the Chicago Association of Realtors, and the National Association of Realtors. Lyft, National Core, you're going to be hearing from Steve Pontel later, and then investors, appropriately, Goldman Sachs, you'll be hearing from Margaret Anadou later, Manufactured Housing Institute, Walgreens, Gator Greenwell, and Mark Stisser. Thank you very much. So I hope you're not sick of me by the end of the day. I'll be up here often. Our goal really is to get you all connected and leading the charge and feeling inspired to go out into the community. A quick quote that I wanted to raise from Martin Luther King Jr. and his letter from a Birmingham jail. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." That message is the message of a great nation, and we have to embrace that. And part of what started this is when then candidate, vice presidential nominee Paul Ryan, got connected with Bob Woodson, who you'll hear from later, and said, "Bob, I want you to take me around the country. I want to do a listening tour. I want to understand what's really going on around the country related to folks who are struggling with poverty and how to create their American dream." And so Bob took Paul around the country, and you're going to hear shortly how that happened, and you're going to see a video that introduces that comeback video series. You'll be able to watch more of it at our website, our YouTube channel, the Jack Kemp Foundation YouTube channel, next week. We're getting all those videos put up next week. But that was the beginning of this, and in 2015, then chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Paul Ryan, said, "Jimmy, I'd like to have a national conversation with political candidates for president about opportunity." So we've done this once before down in South Carolina in 2016 with newly elected Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator Tim Scott. The cover of your program has a picture of one of those first listening tours. That's Bob Woodson, who you can see has really nice designer socks on in the picture. But that's a real picture. It's gritty, it's real, and you see Paul listening to folks. We need politicians who are able to do that and want to engage. So thank you for being here. You'll be engaged throughout the day. After today is what really matters. And right now, I want to bring to the stage someone who's been great to the Kemp Foundation. He's been very good to myself and the Kemp family, become a friend. Really appreciate Todd Ricketts and his wife, Sylvie Legere. Please welcome to the stage, Todd Ricketts. Thanks, Todd. Thanks.
You doing well?
I'm going to grab this.
Pretty good. We grab the book here. It's really great to be here. Thank you, Jimmy. It's great to be here with so many accomplished community, faith, government, and business leaders alongside Jimmy and the whole Kemp family, which I'm so excited that so many of them are here. I can see right over here. I want to start with just a little visual. I want to stop for a second and ask everybody to just close your eyes for a second and imagine yourself standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and look up at the mountain. And I just want to say, we can get to the top of the mountain, and you know what we have to do? Walk. That's it. Just walk. And I say that because these things are, the things that we're trying to address are big issues, but they're simple solutions. They're not easy, but there are solutions, and all we have to do is keep moving forward. So all of us are here today from around Chicago and around the country with one mission: expand opportunity in neighborhoods that need to see opportunity the most. This is not a checkbox sort of exercise. This is about engaging people long-term, over time, to address the issues. And I want to tell a little bit about one of the sponsors. Schwab is one of the sponsors here, and I don't know if everybody knows it, because everybody knows that we're the family that owns the Cubs, but you don't know that our real family business is Ameritrade. And Ameritrade started 43 years ago this month, the same month that Charles Schwab started, in the same industry. We're both discount brokers. We've been head-to-head competitors for 43 years, always with an immense amount of esteem and respect for one another. And over the years, as we got to know the Schwab family, found out that we had a lot more in common than separated us. And so I'm so happy to have them as a sponsor here today, and I just wanted to tell that little story. And the other sponsor I really want to point out too is Wintrust, who is a great partner of ours at the Cubs, and also just a great partner of the city of Chicago. So I'm happy they're here today. As Jimmy mentioned, the vision for today started about 2 years ago, following a heartfelt and somewhat lively conversation among presidential candidates during the first Kemp Forum on Expanding Opportunity in 2016. A few of us here in Chicago thought, wouldn't it be great to bring that focus here, but with the goal of involving local, state, and federal policymakers along with the local community to have a lasting impact. Part of this goal of the lasting impact is relationship building. So to make sure that take time and network around your table and visit with all the other local community organizers showcasing their work. Every person who will take the stage today and all the leaders manning the booths, in addition to most of you in this room, have invested a great deal of time, energy, and resources to create the opportunities and end violence in our city. By convening, networking, listening, and learning, it is my hope that we will continue to see deeper collaboration across the Chicago community. And hopefully this collaboration will lead us to understanding that we are all members of the same community, the Chicago community. In industries that I've worked in my life, in my career, I've always gone to conventions and conferences multiple times a year. And I would do that so I could get to know the people who were working in my industry and also get to know what was happening in my industry to make sure I wasn't falling behind. And one of the really interesting things that I found when we started having these conferences, this Kemp series for these last few months, is that not everybody knew each other. And so I think it's really great that we have this community we're bringing together, that we can talk to each other about what works, what successes, what failures we've had, and we can build from there. Because this room, these are the people, we are the people who are addressing the most serious and difficult issues that our society faces today. My wife Sylvia and I have been involved in the Kemp Foundation efforts here in Chicago and are excited about the meetings that have taken place with Chicagoans who live on the south and west sides. These meetings have been opportunities for listening and learning, deepening relationships, and gaining information. These are the efforts that lay the groundwork for increasing impact of everyone's work. Thanks again to the Kemp Foundation and their power to perform small led community workshops into this larger forum. And now we're here today with business leaders, elected officials, faith organizers, and we're rolling up our sleeves together. Jimmy's father, Jack Kemp, was a great role model to keep in mind today. He may have been a pro football MVP quarterback, but he knew he needed 10 other offensive players and 11 defensive players to win, and it took everybody working together. That same mindset led my alma mater, Loyola, to the Final Four. It was all about selflessness and teamwork. And I'm really excited. I was really happy that we were able to have the coach of Loyola, Porter Moser, come to one of our earlier sessions and talk about teamwork and Chicago. It was really inspiring. And it was also that same mindset of teamwork and togetherness that brought the Cubs a World Series after 108 years drought of no World Series championships. And so I feel pretty good about what we've done at the Cubs, and I kind of want to bring that same sort of thinking and mindset to the rest of Chicago and to the community leaders we have here today. Everyone here today wants to do their part, and it takes more than just throwing resources at a problem or imposing one person's idea. It takes partnerships, relationships, listening, and understanding, investing in each other and demonstrating the commitment to see things through. Few people are as committed to making a difference as our next speakers. Paul Ryan is the U.S. Speaker of the House, and I don't know how many of his predecessors would have spent the day engaged in conversation on how to rebuild our communities, but it is no surprise to me to see Paul here today. As a young man, he worked as a legislative aide for then Congressman Jack Kemp, if you can see the trend we're going here, there's a lot of relationship, and an advocate and an evangelist to for the empowerment of communities. Under his leadership, the president's tax reform package included South Carolina Senator Tim Scott's proposal for opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are leveraging the incentive of significantly reduced capital gains to bring hundreds of millions of dollars for reinvestment in neighborhoods across the country that have fallen on hard times. The goal is good-paying, long-lasting jobs. And this is the type of effort in Congress everyone can get behind. And few people, our other speaker here in a minute, have advocated for empowering the individual more effectively than Reverend Buster Soaries. Buster has been a faith leader at the First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens in New Jersey since 1990, where he's worked across the community. Buster has earned widespread respect and reputation for refusing to accept no for an answer. His hands-on activism has resulted in long-lasting revitalization across his community. Buster takes on each problem as it arises, which led to his passion for educating all people on how to achieve financial freedom by eliminating debt, delinquency, and deficits in their lives. Buster is a leader for his congregation and his community, and in his spare time, he is helping people across the country build stronger communities by preaching the power of the individual. Paul and Buster are both no-nonsense advocates for empowering our cities and towns with expanded opportunity. They always have a path forward, and I'm proud to say that they are both my friends. But before we have them take the stage, I'm going to share with you a short video that will introduce you to them and get you to know them a little bit more closely before they talk. And with that, I think we're going to cut to a video.
To me, the American idea is a real simple story that I learned as a kid, which is, in this country, nothing limits you to be who you want to be except your own effort and your own God-given talent. The condition of your birth, it doesn't determine the outcome of your life in this country. But part of the problem, I think, is a lot of people are losing sight of this. In certain communities, there are people who don't believe that this is necessarily there for them. We've gotten so swelled up in this fight in Washington that we sort of forgot about listening to people who are actually making a difference, who are actually fighting poverty successfully.
You cannot do a drive-by analysis of this kind of complex disease.
What is it that you are learning from your failures?
Who are showing through the example of their lives how we can do a better job of helping people.
Real freedom is having come to the conclusion that you are not your circumstances and that you redefine your future from the inside out. By the time I reached my teen years, the civil rights movement was at its peak. All of the racial sensitivities and the frustrations of the moment in 1968 came to a head. Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor, at that time, was the pastor of the Abyssinian Church in Harlem. He was mentor to Martin Luther King Jr. He was not only my professor, but my mentor, and he lived in Somerset, New Jersey. And this church became vacant. And Sam Proctor said, I have just a guy for you. Here I am, a businessman, I'm ready to conquer the world. And I said to Dr. Proctor, I can't go to this church. It has nothing. And he said to me, if guys like you don't go to churches like that, what will happen to our people? And it just kind of grabbed me. So we embarked on a mission. Our debt-free movement is based on personal responsibility.
In and out of jail, over 15, 20 years, strung out off heroin and cocaine, over 20 years. Went to a couple of drug programs, didn't work. Keep losing my job. I was working body work over here, painting cars over here, working for this car wash over here.
There is a role people must play in their own uplift.
And from the car wash, with no water in the truck, with a station wagon knocking on people's doors, I just kept going. I got to start my own business. Jasper's mobile car wash is taking off.
And when you go around the country and look at the people who are the unsung heroes of our urban centers, they always insist that people take responsibility for their own improvement. And the execution of that plan has now resulted in over $500 million of new investments in this neighborhood. And the plan that the church created became the plan that the neighborhood then expanded on. And the plan that we created as a neighborhood became the official plan of the municipalities that we sit in.
I was inspired at what people had gone through, what they have accomplished, and how they're helping others do the same. it left me with a sense of inspiration and a sense of great hope and optimism that if we can see more of these stories replicated, then we can really break the back of poverty, that we can really have redemption in our communities and renew the American idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Reverend Dr. Deforest Buster Soaries.
Wow. Hello, everybody. My name is Deforest Soaries. My friends call me Buster, and my enemies call me Buster, too. I'm happy to be in Chicago. Let's thank the Ricketts family, the Kemp Foundation, and all of those that invited us to be here today. Come on, let's thank them for doing it. And give yourself a round of applause for being here to talk about solutions to the nation's problems. I am honored to spend some time with my friend. He is a great leader. He is a great congressman. He is a passionate husband. He's a dedicated father. He sleeps on the couch in his office, and he goes home every week to Wisconsin. Let's welcome the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Come on, Congressman Paul Ryan.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
That was neat. Hey, folks. How you doing? Hey, Joanne. Nice to see you.
Paul, bring us up to date on things that are important to you that we don't read about or hear about in the news.
Well, that's just about everything. That's important. So what I'll get into, Buster, is we have been working on an opportunity agenda, a poverty agenda, for quite some time in Congress. And it hasn't gotten a great deal of attention, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean to say it hasn't gotten done. So based upon a lot of the travels that we have had together, we came to the realization that we need to get more resources into communities and more resources into ideas and very effective, skilled poverty fighters. And we need to sort of flood the zone, not with just government, and government has a very important role to play, but with private capital and with ideas to revitalize communities and save souls. So to that end, a group of us, in particular, Tim Scott, a senator from South Carolina, he hosted this forum a couple years ago in Columbia, South Carolina, and Congressman who retired, Pat Tiberi, sort of took over when I left the Ways and Means Committee, this issue. When I was Jack Kemp's staff guy, we worked on this idea called enterprise zones back in those days. Right. That was 25 years ago when we were talking about enterprise zones. We now have it in law, and we call them opportunity zones. That's something that we put in our tax bill, which is one of our solutions to getting a lot of private capital into poor and distressed communities to revitalize. And what empowerment opportunity zones do from a tax perspective, I don't want to get too wonky on it, is you can sell an asset and take the proceeds of that, don't pay taxes on that sale, and invest it into an opportunity zone. What is an opportunity zone? It is 25% of the poorest census tracts in America. Each state deems which of its census tracts will become opportunity zones. Those were due in April. States have filed. Our state, I can tell you, in Wisconsin, they're already been approved. And so now we're beginning to roll out this concept so that the 25% of the most distressed census tracts are able for opportunity zones. Any investor can take an asset, sell it, invest it in an opportunity zone in a fund, and if they keep it there, meaning not short-term money, if you keep your investment in these distressed communities for at least 10 years, you don't pay capital gains on it. You don't pay taxes on it. And
You talked about that, I remember.
We talk about this forever.
Years ago. It's now law, and I think a lot of people will be surprised that they haven't heard about this in the media, but it's reality, it's happening.
It's reality, it's happening, and so what we're trying to do is promote the concept, and we believe there are trillions of dollars of unrealized capital gains that are out there that can be unlocked and reinvested in poor communities. And so now we want to make this concept really take off. We want to get funds designed and built to go invest. The other thing that we did in the tax law is something we call social impact bonds. Right. It's a concept that we got this from Great Britain. It was something that they used. Identify a problem in a distressed community, identify a solution, pre-agree on how you're going to measure the effectiveness of whether it works or not, and then you can sell a bond to finance this plan, and if the metrics are met, the goal is achieved, the bond pays off. And that is another way of getting private capital into the hands of local poverty fighters who have an idea they want to try and fix a problem. And again, it's all about getting private capital into our poor and distressed communities to try and turn things around. The reason we got into these ideas is at the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty, we started scratching our heads and thinking, okay, it's been 50 years. We've put trillions of dollars in spending in fighting the war on poverty. We created lots of bureaucracies, lots of programs, and we really basically measured success on effort, on input, on how many programs do we have, how much money are we spending, how many people are on the programs. And we really were looking at it the wrong way, which is, are we truly getting at the root causes of poverty? Are we truly solving things such that we're actually getting people out of poverty, multi-generational poverty, situational poverty? Are we actually fixing the problem and really bending the curve? Because the poverty rates are about the same as they were when we started this thing 50 years ago.
Exactly.
So that's what led to all these ideas. There are many things we're also doing in policy to try and streamline and get resources back to communities and get rid of the top-down, heavy-handed bureaucracy that comes from the federal government, no matter who's in charge of the federal government. And that is a number of the things that we've been doing. We also want to emphasize work and career development, skills. So our prison reform bill is moving its way through. We passed it out of the committee just this last week to focus on skills in prison, focus on reducing recidivism, focus on mainstreaming people coming back into society. And also, we want to focus on work for an able-bodied person. In this kind of an economy where you have more job openings than people looking for jobs right now. And we have a real issue of labor force. We have about 12 million people who can work, who ought to work, who are able-bodied, but are not working or looking for work or in school. So we believe we have an opportunity to pull people off of the sidelines into school or into the workforce so that they can get opportunity. And that is that is a piece of what we're trying to accomplish here. And we think this economy is the perfect time to do this. So we want to flood the zone with private capital, with fresh ideas, empower local poverty groups. We also want to make sure that the programs that people do experience are focused on getting them up, not staying where they are, but moving into school or moving into work. And that's basically the components of what we've been trying to achieve. A number of these things are now already in law as of a few months ago, and the rest we hope to get done by the end of the summer.
That's great. That's a great agenda. Come on. That's a great agenda because it focuses on problems, but it also focuses on solutions.
Right.
And it creates policies, it creates resources, and it assumes that there's a connection with people that know how to execute. Now, we talk a lot in private about the fact that there are resources available, and there are people who are really the unsung heroes and heroines of local communities. How do you make that connection between the resources and the right people?
So this is what we've been doing. This is what we've been doing for a few years, which is, let's just take Shirley Holloway over in Anacostia, who's got a great program, or Jubal Garcia with Out Cry in the Barrio, or the work you're doing in New Jersey and around the country. There are great ideas. There are people who actually know how to solve problems, but they're under-resourced. That's why what we're trying to do is, number one, just connect people. That's what the Kemp Foundation helps do, is connect people who want to help, who have resources, with those proven poverty fighters in communities who actually know what they're doing. And what we try to do is get the middleman out of the way so that those resources can happen. But again, that's the purpose of opportunity zones. That's the purpose of social impact bonds. That's the purpose of doing all the kind of work we're doing. And the last point I guess I'd make on this policy rollout is a number of years ago, we were having a hard time trying to measure the effectiveness of our efforts to fight poverty. And we really had no way of measuring whether what we were doing was working or not. So we teamed up with a lot of scholars, and Patty Murray and I formed a commission, the Evidence-Based Policy Commission. That commission produced a result on here is how you can go forward and measure the success of these programs as to whether they're effective or not. And here's how you open up data so that scholars and researchers can go and help improve this. That commission bill now is working its way through Congress. It's already passed the House, and we're working on getting it into final law so that we are now measuring the effectiveness of our poverty reducing efforts so that at the end of the day, we go with what works and we stop doing things that don't work, that are failing. And we believe that private sector investors out there are going to be more encouraged to invest in solutions when they can see hard data that this program works. These people who are fighting poverty in these communities are actually doing a good job, so it's worth my investment. Tack a social impact bond on top of it, get an empowerment zone, opportunity zone in this area, and we really think we can accelerate revitalizing our communities.
One of the challenges we have is that there's often political and reputational risk in solving problems.
Yeah.
For instance, when you came to New Jersey, we showed you our foster care adoption strategy. Well, over the years, we took in 1,440 foster children and adopted 300. Now, when you adopt 300 children, you're basically saving the state $3.6 million that no longer has to be given to foster families because those children are now in forever families. But then when the government cuts the budget by $3.6 million, the perception is that the government doesn't care because spending has gone down.
Yeah,
well, if you solve a problem, spending can go down, and that money can be redirected somewhere else.
That's right.
How do you, because your philosophy and your policies pursue that kind of strategy, how do you answer the critics that say that solutions and expenditures are tantamount to one another?
Because that's exactly what that's what this commission was all about. That's what our evidence-based policy legislation is all about, which is we have to change the definition of success. The definition of success is not effort. It's not 3.6 million in more funding. It is, did we solve the problem?
Yeah.
Did we get kids and children in better families? Are all the things that come out of a bad foster system solved or not? So by moving the definition of success from input and effort to outcome and results is how I believe you not only get the moral high ground, how you win the argument so that you can focus on truly improving people's lives. And that's, again, the whole concept behind all these efforts, whether it's opportunity zones, social impact bonds, which, by the way, that's a perfect candidate for a social impact bond. We have let's just say we have a problem in this state with this foster care program, or in this city with this foster care program. We have a solution that we think will work. Here's how we're going to measure its effectiveness. You can then have a bond to finance doing this. And if those measurements are actually achieved, those goals are achieved, the bond pays off. And the private capital that went in to finance that activity gets paid off. And if it doesn't get paid off, but then you've learned a lesson of what didn't work.
Exactly.
And that's the whole trial and error concept, but with the goal toward actually achieving the result, which is improving a person's life.
Well, when I leave here, I'm going to call Arizona Governor Doug Ducey.
Yeah.
We're working with him to take 2,000 children that are in group homes and place them in private homes. Will save the state of Arizona $100 million. But we need a bond.
That's right. Yeah. You need a bond, but we want to be able to ahead of time. Ahead of time, we said this is the goal.
Right.
This is what we're trying to achieve. Don't be surprised, everybody, if we actually end up saving the taxpayers some money that can be used for something else. Don't be surprised. So that's the whole point of this, of shifting this conversation so that it is outcome and results oriented. The problem I have seen in this issue is it becomes partisan, it becomes ideological, it becomes fiefdom. People like the status quo, they're clung to the status quo, their livelihoods are tied to the status quo. All of that is a big distraction away from actually getting people out of poverty, actually solving the problem.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
I'm a Baptist preacher. You've been to the church, you're Catholic, and both of us know Jesus said, the poor you will always have with you. But he didn't say the same folk would be poor from generation to generation. Right. So there will always be poverty, but the same people don't have to be in it.
That's right.
I talked about political risk. It is true that in small circles behind closed doors, there was a lot of bipartisan consensus, but few people. I saw Congressman Davis from Chicago come in earlier. I know Hakeem.
Hakeem Jeffries
worked with you from New York. Jack Kemp had a good relationship with Walter Fauntleroy and
Floyd Flake.
And Floyd Flake. But it seems that the partisan divide is so entrenched that people on both sides would rather have people who need their cooperation lose than to rise above the partisan divide and really work together.
It takes leaders. And again, this is why Patty Murray and I have this bill to say the definition of success should be measured by the outcomes. That way, we check our ideology at the door, we check our partisan guilds at the door, and we focus on here's the goal, and if the goal is being met, then let's go with what works. And if the goal isn't met, then we don't go with what fails, we go with what works. That's why we're trying to change this conversation. But I don't want to get him in trouble. I don't know if I would, but Danny Davis is the kind of guy who actually reaches across the aisle to focus on an outcome to get things done. I served with him for years.
Where is he? Where is he?
I hope I don't want to get him in trouble.
There he is,
Danny. So
let me tell you something. You can't get Danny Davis.
Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble, Danny. So Danny and I, before I was Speaker, I was chair of the Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee that Danny serves on. He is one of those members who says, if this is, you and Diane Black worked on those education bills together. If this is a good idea, I'm for it. And it takes leaders like that who are willing to buck, sort of the partisanship. Hakeem's another good guy who I was just describing. I'm for criminal justice reform and prison reform. Those are two similar issues, but slightly different issues. We now know we have a path to law on prison reform. So we want to get as much done as possible, and we have a pathway into law. And Hakeem is a member of the Judiciary Committee, which for a while there was looking like we weren't going to have any support on an issue most of us agree on.
Yeah.
Let's reform the prison system. Let's focus on anti-recidivism. Let's focus on job training, on skills, and making sure that we can mainstream people when they come out so that they have some opportunities. Hakeem Jeffries teamed up with a guy named Doug Collins, a former pastor from Georgia, a Republican, and they brought this bill through committee, and they got a massive bipartisan vote just this week, and we're going to get this issue done. Right. So it takes some leaders willing to stand up and actually say, I'm for this because it's the right thing to do.
Well, I had to pull up my phone because I agreed to take questions that came through Jimmy, but I realized I didn't have my phone, and I know Jimmy's going crazy trying to figure out why am I not asking his questions. Okay, so that would segue, the political discussion will segue into the governmental discussion. I was in state government under Governor Whitman and federal government under President Bush, and I've watched over the last 20 years a shift in the culture of government and the temperament of government. Based on your 20 years of experience, and you're now envisioning light at the end of your 20-year tunnel.
Yes, I am.
Describe what you think is the culture of government and the prospects for making for more efficient and effective government.
Yeah, so I'm concerned about some things and very optimistic about other things. What I'm concerned about is just the hyperpolarization that we see. And it's not necessarily one particular person or personality. I think it's the 21st century in that with digital and the internet, it has weaponized polarization.
Wow.
And what we've learned is identity politics, which now is practiced by both sides, the left and the right. Identity politics, which seeks basically to divide people from one another for political gain and for political profit. That has been accelerated with the internet, basically. And so there are forces out there that have been able to take, the moral relativism that's pervasive in society, which is something that pastors and families have to fix, and put identity politics on it and added 21st century technology to a devastating effect. And I think that is one of the reasons why we have so much more polarization. So that means we all have to work even harder to overcome this divisiveness that we have. And that is where I'm actually, I have a sense of optimism, which is because of the fact that we can better measure what works, because the world is so much smaller because of technology, we can actually use real-life evidence of what really works to break through this polarization, to break through this tribalism that's been rising, and just focus on outcomes and results and what works. And where I'm really optimistic is the economy is doing well and going to get even better, I believe. So I believe it's the kind of policies we pursued, regulatory relief and tax reform. It has unlocked hundreds of billions of dollars just this year investing into jobs. I mean, where I live, we've got Foxconn coming to Racine. That's 13,500 jobs. That's coming to just a couple hours north of here. And we've got a new technical college campus that's being built there to train workers to go have really good jobs of the 21st century. So the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of those opportunities out there. There are 6.6 job openings in America. That's more than people looking for jobs. But we still have a lot of displaced people who are not even counted in the unemployment rate. But we have opportunities that are out there. So in a time where we have the kind of economy we have, where we have an acknowledgement we have to focus on getting people the skills they need to get the careers and the jobs they want, and we have those opportunities out there, I'm optimistic that we can help pull people out of poverty, pull people off the sidelines, get them into work, get them into skills training, work on the soft skills, work on the hard skills, and really make a huge dent in opportunity for the better. And so that's why I'm really actually optimistic, but I think we have more to do to overcome this hyperpolarization that is really sort of pervading our country and our society.
Yeah, in many ways, you are who you are because you had an opportunity to see leadership like Jack Kemp's leadership, which is a lot of
It was
why
inclusive
we're here
leadership. It
today.
was an inclusive, aspirational form of politics.
After the 2012 election, you, Bob, and I had dinner shortly thereafter, and we invited you to spend time in communities where there were problems being solved. Not only did you agree to do it, you agreed to do it without media attention. You are now on your way out. Jack Kemp mentored you. Who are you mentoring? How do we get more Jack Kemp, Paul Ryan type leaders? Because it seems that representatives like yourself, Danny, Hakeem, are far and few between.
Yeah.
So where's the pipeline?
There are
the bench?
I'm actually pretty excited about the bench. There's a pretty good pipeline. I just mentioned Hakeem, who's a Democrat from Danny. Where's he from? Brooklyn, I think.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn. So
Well,
I know
that's
he's
where
one
I'm
of the
from.
boroughs. These boroughs all run together. I'm from Wisconsin, so
That's right.
So I see young leaders who are more outcome-based. I think Cedric Richmond, who's head of the CBC, is one of those leaders. On our side of the aisle, I see a lot of good young leaders. I'm just talking about the House of Representatives,
Right.
but I see a lot of young leaders who are up and coming. We have former pastors who have ministered in poor communities who really have a passion for this. There's a podiatrist, surgeon, military guy, Brad Wenstrup from Ohio, who has a huge heart for this. So I do believe that we have a whole bunch of Kemp-like aspirational, inclusive conservatives who want to be mission-focused and outcome-based focused that are in Congress now who you don't read about them because they're not on Fox News or on CNN, wailing away. They're not trying to get a lot of attention. They're just actually trying to get things done. So there are different kinds of folks in politics. I call them beers and doers. We have a lot of doers on both sides of the aisle, by the way, who really are mission focused. And that is why ultimately I'm optimistic. There is a lot getting done. I mean, Danny would probably agree with me. I would think about 80% of what we pass in Congress is bipartisan. About 8 out of 10 bills that we bring to the floor, he was just telling me about the bills they just got out of Ways and Means Committee, are bipartisan. So know that a lot is getting done under the surface of the media because what gets attention are the controversial stuff. What gets attention are the things where we truly do have big differences and we fight each other over those differences. But underneath that scrum in the media on the internet is actually a lot that is actually getting done. And that's what these workers in Congress, these doers in Congress are focused on. And there's a great bench. It's one of the reasons why I'm comfortable moving on. My kids are 13, 14, 16, doing this for 20 years, got a lot of the things I wanted to get done. And I want to go work, in private life in these areas. But I take solace in the fact that there's a whole crop of young leaders, newer leaders that are ready to take this mantle on.
Well, good. Well, send us their names so we can take solace also. All right. Justin Heath is here. He has a question. How much does education have to do with the future, with future opportunities? Don't we need to address schools from a federal level?
Everything. Yes. So, yes, the answer is yes to that. There are two areas of reform at the federal level we're working on. If you know, K through 12, about 96% of the money is local money. Right. It's property taxes, it's state and local. We passed a bipartisan reform about 2 years ago, redoing Title I to give more power and authority to state and local communities. But now we're working on career and technical education reform. That bill is out of the House. Big bipartisan vote. it was a massive bipartisan vote, and that is to streamline the career and technical education resources and the bureaucracy, get those resources back to our communities so that Gateway's a perfect example where I live, just north. The dollars go to the local, I think you call them city colleges or community colleges in Illinois. We call them technical colleges. Let them team up with local employers to come up with a curriculum to teach people the skills that are needed in those local up-and-coming industries. That kind of flexibility of making sure that people can get the skills they want at a cheaper price for the jobs that are being offered is one of the big bills that we're moving through the system. It's out of the House, it's moving through the Senate, and then we're working on higher education reform. The question about higher education reform is, can you break up a monopoly and allow different ideas to flourish? Can you have transparency so that you can get at the root cause of tuition inflation, which is measure the buck you get for $1 tuition based upon what do you get with that dollar? How can you measure, do people get the skills they want, the degrees they want, and do they get the jobs they want, and what do those jobs pay? So bring some transparency to the higher education system so that people can truly see what they're getting for their money and then measure according to results. That is the higher education reform that we're pushing through. So those are two of the things that we're working on right now in the education.
Well, that's critical in higher ed because the trillion-dollar debt burden of student loans often seems to have no value proposition. And so if we can align value with cost, then I think higher ed can be reformed. We have another question here about just the general area of success, results, and outcomes. As we measure success by results and outcomes, would you speak to the time it may take to see results in traumatized youth and/or neighborhoods?
It's a really good question. So I hate to say that everything is based on legislation because it really isn't. But what we have learned from looking at basically 50 years of data on the war on poverty is we don't glean whether or not these programs are effective or not. We now know how to release data in a way to protect people's privacy and to measure based on outcomes. And we have a bill that will open this data up. This is government data, but what we're trying to do is start a whole new cottage industry of results-oriented poverty fighting. Because of technology today, we can use outcome-based data. LEO is a perfect example. The Laboratory for Economic Opportunity at the University of Notre Dame. They are building. Baylor has one of these as well. There are a lot of schools that are doing this. I'm close to the Irish, but to the Notre Dame. So what LEO does is they have developed models on how to go into with poverty-fighting solutions in specific communities to have quality control and to measure success. So LEO is doing this right now. I was at Catholic Charities in Fort Worth not too long ago. Catholic Charities in Fort Worth has wraparound social services with case workers and case management to focus on people's problems to get them out of poverty. And LEO has basically designed a measurement system so that they can measure whether they're being effective or not in tracking a person through, after they've been dealt with, to go with what works. So there are resources already out there and people who know how to help design programs to focus on what works. So that is actually occurring right now. What we're trying to do is just hypercharge that.
Yeah, and not only does that data attract public support, but in my experience, if you do an effective job that can produce measurable outcomes, even the private sector.
That's the point.
Will help you. I mean, Prudential called me on our financial program, and Prudential now is one of our private sector partners because the data reveals success.
Yeah, here's the way I see this. I think for about a generation, we've been telling the rest of our fellow citizens, yes, as you drive, down to the ball game, you go to see the Bears or the Bulls,
Or the Cubs. The Cubs.
You're driving past these poor neighborhoods. I remember driving past Cabrini Green to go, I'm actually a Cubs fan, but
Good.
We go to the White Sox park every now and then. So, remember you drive past these areas and government was telling people, don't worry about this. You don't need to do anything. Just pay your taxes. Government's got this covered. And so, right or wrong, it was well-intended programs. We've basically told citizens, you don't have to do anything about this, but pay your taxes. And so we've marginalized the poor. We've displaced the poor. We have told people you don't have a responsibility. Our faith tells us otherwise. But what I think we can do with this new approach is refuse and reintegrate people in need with people who actually want to help but don't know how to help.
Right.
And that means outcomes. That means evidence. That means here is something that works. We have proven data that shows that this is working. Invest in it. And now we've made the tax laws so that it actually pays to invest in it.
Right.
So that's basically what we're trying to do, is reintegrate problem solvers with people with problems, show that we can have measurable results, you can make a difference, and now we want all this private capital to flow, and we want the government to help do that. I always tell people, we don't want to cut government spending in this area. It's not about spending cuts, it's about getting better outcomes.
Right.
And what we want to do is basically measure success based on outcomes, not based on inputs. So government shouldn't be manning the front lines. Government should manage the supply lines, supply the resources, supply the beginnings, but let's have the frontline poverty fighters with proven know-how that's now measurable, actually doing things and making a difference. And then let's get private capital combined as well to focus in harmony. Everybody, government, private sector, Prudential, banks, whoever, along with local on-the-ground poverty fighters going with what works. That is what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, the reason this is so important is because when the speaker talks about on-the-ground poverty fighters, these are people who often have no credentials, they have no 501c3, they may have one, but they don't have a big social service bureaucracy. And as we've seen the war on poverty over the last 50 years, there are literally bureaucracies built that specialize in accessing resources without having to help people.
Yeah, it's like a poverty industrial complex, as Bob Woodson said.
That's exactly what it is. And so as someone who's been on the ground, at the end of the day, access to capital and the building of capacity is really what will make the difference in these sustainable outcomes.
Violence-free zones is a perfect example. So we've spent a lot of time on violence-free zones. Bob Woodson is the man who promotes these around the country. We have it in Racine. We've got it in Milwaukee. I believe there's some here in Chicago. Pulaski High School is a really good example. Pulaski High School, a handful of years ago, had 13 gangs in Pulaski High School. This is right across the street from St. Luke's, our greatest heart hospital. One of the best heart hospitals in Wisconsin. You don't want to pick. So it's in Milwaukee. It's in a really important part of town. And Pulaski High School had horrible graduation rates, horrible tuition rates, massive amounts of violence. They're putting police and cameras in there. Nothing worked until they came up with the violence-free zones. Now, what are violence-free zones? Mentors in the schools attached to kids who are troubled youth, helping them find their way. And by the way, the mentors aren't, clinically trained, PhD, masters, social scientists. It's people who themselves were in gangs, people who have felonies, people who went through these problems. And, government programs, if you're doing a background check on a person, none of these people would get a job.
Not one.
But these are the folks who actually have the credibility.
Right.
They've redeemed themselves. They want to give back, and they want to tell youth, don't make the mistake I made. And by the way, they have more credibility than anybody. And guess what? Those gangs are gone. Violence is gone. Graduates are up.
That's right.
The metrics are there.
They're there.
So what we do is we go tell this story, go invest in this. Let's create more of these things. Private capital, local school districts. That's the kind of thing we want to flourish. And that means local poverty fighters are typically people that won't make a background check if it's all government. And the United Way might say, ooh, geez, I'm not so sure. That's why we want to focus on what actually works and getting behind the people with credibility to actually solve these problems. And what we think our approach will do is all that matters is results. It doesn't matter who gets us the results as long as we get the results. And now we're trying to make it so that it actually pays to invest in doing this so that we can reintegrate this approach. That's what this philosophy is all about.
And that's a great philosophy. Listen.
Sorry, I get going on this stuff sometimes.
No, you do. You got a little preacher in you, I know. We only have a few minutes left. Here's an important question that I think you'd like to answer. What's the difference between new market tax credits, opportunity zones, and social impact bonds?
Okay, that's a good question. So new market tax credits, which we're also we call them reauthorized. We kept them going.
Right.
New market tax credits, pretty much banks administer them, and they're a tax credit for a specific investment in a specific community to build up some kind of an investment. Typically, A lot of them go to real estate deals or factories. So you can, certain areas can get new market tax credits that banks administer to tax credit finance the building of some kind of a business. And they're very finite. Social impact bonds are, there was one that actually failed in New York City to try and, which is part of a success story in a weird way. There was one that failed in New York City, which was to try and focus on truancy and delinquency. And they had an idea. They said, this is what measurement will look like. And they didn't meet the measurement, so the bond didn't pay off. But they got private capital that invested in it. Social impact bonds basically say, you can create a bond that will pay off, meaning that the tax laws allow the bond to be paid off to fix a problem. It doesn't mean build a building. It might mean drug addiction, homelessness. It could be any kind of problem in a community that you define, here's the problem, here's how I define solution, here's how we'll measure success, and then you float a bond to finance this plan, and if those metrics are met, the bond does pay off. You get private capital to come in, induced by the fact that they get, it's like a municipal bond to create a social good. That's what a social impact bond is. So it's not necessarily a physical building like a new market tax credit. Opportunity zone is basically this entire census tract, this entire neighborhood, this area is now eligible for zero capital gains if you invest in this area.
Right, okay.
So we call these like-kind exchanges. You can sell an asset, roll it into a fund in this area. You keep your investment there for 7 years, you get a big discount. You keep it there for 10 years, you have no taxes on that asset. So 96% of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone now.
Right.
So if you go, we had a lot of work to do to rebuild Puerto Rico. So if you go and invest in Puerto Rico, you will have tax-free savings on the back end with that investment. So we believe there's about $6 trillion of untapped, unrealized capital gains. We want to tap that to get that investment into these poor communities. And I think new market tax credits will pale in comparison when this is all fully rolled out.
Okay, we're out of time, and I want you to spend the last couple of minutes helping us, because many of us will never see you again like this in person as Speaker of the House, other than television. Where is Paul Ryan going after he is Speaker Paul Ryan?
My plan is to come up with a plan in 2019. So I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think I should, because I've got a lot of work to do right now.
But that's an answer.
Yeah. So I'm going to run through the tape. I've got a lot of work to do for the next six to 8 months, and then we'll figure out on after that. But I'm not walking away from this fight. I can guarantee you that.
No, we won't let you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're too young. You're too bright. You're too passionate. You're too accessible. You're in Wisconsin. We can find you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let's give Speaker Paul Ryan a great round. Come on.
Thanks.
Great round of applause.
Appreciate it. All right, buddy.
Great job.
Thanks, brother.
Great job.
Oh, good job.
Hey,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man. Thanks, buddy.
Paul. So I know that ovation was in no small part because you recognize that having the opportunity to hear Paul and Buster talk shows you that what you see on the media is not the whole picture. Wasn't it great to hear right from Speaker Paul Ryan his heart and what's in his mind? So it's important to remember and understand that public service is a high calling. Anyone who goes into office, they may not have pure white intentions. None of us do in anything that we do, right? But our public servants are following a high calling. And as citizens, we need to hold them to account. But we also need to treat them respectfully and with appreciation while holding them to account for the job that we elected them to do. Government of, by, and for the people. And Paul has been in the game for over 20 years, and I just want all of us to thank him once again, not just for today, but for his 20 years of service, the sacrifice that his family has made, and I have a feeling that we may see him again in a few years. So please give another round of applause to Speaker Paul Ryan. Okay, so now things get fun and interesting. Not that that wasn't. So what we want to do is highlight some of the groups who we've gotten to meet in the last 6 months that I've been coming to Chicago, where we've been trying to engage the community and understand, like Paul said, what's happening from the ground up. So right now, I want to welcome to the stage the Earl STEM Elementary School chess team. Not only, come on out, Mr. Okel and all the chess players from Earl STEM Elementary School. Are they coming? There we go. Come on, Mr. Okel. Thank you. You sit right here. Children, can you stand right between us here? That'd be awesome. Forgive me showing you my back. My mom would probably not appreciate that. Give them a warm round of applause again. So, Mr. Okel, if you can take the mic. You all are standing right there. And let's make room. We want to see everybody. We're going to talk to Mr. Okel for a second, but I'd like each of you to say your name as I put the mic in front of your mouth. So your full name and what grade you're in. You got it? Can you do it? Yes. I know you can. You're chess players. What's your name?
Brianna Shaw, and I'm in 8th grade.
Okay, do it just a touch slower. I know you're nervous, but this is a great learning opportunity. I'm nervous too. Say it a little bit slower.
My name is Brianna Shaw, and I'm in 8th grade.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianna.
My name is Tamaya Fultz, and I'm in 8th grade.
Awesome. Yep, you can clap.
My name is Tahir Levi, and I'm in 4th grade.
All right, Tahir, step forward.
My name is Christina Williams, and I am in 5th grade.
Awesome.
My name is Gavin Harry, and I'm in 5th grade.
Oh, don't be shy. So, Mr. Okel, can you tell everyone what caused you as a teacher to start this team? What was the vision that you had in your mind?
Jimmy, first of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming over here and giving us time to expound our program. Jimmy, in 2005, I realized that the most dangerous time for kids to be outside the school building is the after school, which was 3 to 6 p.m. And that came about the building. So I realized that maybe there ought to be something that I can do in my own simple and small way. So I was a math teacher then, and I'm still a math teacher now. So I thought maybe I should do chess because it's the least expensive and yet the most effective in developing critical thinking skills.
That's awesome.
But at the time, I also had kids who prefer basketball. Well, there's nothing about basketball because it's a physical activity. So I decided to entice some of my kids. I said, well, let's start a chess club. And I had only 8 at the time, and 6 of them were failing in my math class. So I said, you want to get some points, so come after school, and I'll also help you in math. So they came, and I said, okay, so you also have free time. And free time was, they did not expect that free time would be learning chess. So they said, it's a bit boring. So I said, okay, I'll get some snacks. So I spent from my own pocket, giving them snacks. And to make a long story short,
snacks, not
yes,
snacks.
Snacks.
Gotcha.
Chips. They love chips. So, and that's the least, and that's the most I could afford. So every day they came, and I got them to love chess. To make a long story short, from 8, it became 65 kids.
From 8 to 65?
Yeah, after 1 year. Then 2 years after, we won, one of my kids won the first ever state medal, Illinois. So after that, 2 years after, one of my kids won first place in the national. And so I thought chess can help develop critical thinking skills. And every piece in the chess set has something to do in life. For instance, I asked them, who's the king in your life? Who's the queen in your life? Which piece can become a queen. The lowly pawn can become a queen. That's the only piece that can become a queen. So in other words, you can dream anything. You want to become a CEO, a president, the mayor. From a pawn, you can become a queen, as long as you believe in your dreams.
Amen. Well, thank you, Mr. Okel. Is it Tamia? Tamaya. I practiced it and I got it wrong. I apologize, Tamaya. Tamaya, would you tell everyone, step forward and tell everyone what you love or what you like about chess and how you got involved?
So what I like.
Hold it really close.
So what I like about chess is that we get to travel and compete against other students. Mostly just the competition. And what was the second thing?
And how did you start? What was it? Were you like, oh, chess, I want to go do that? Or how did it start for you?
So I wasn't really interested in chess, so really.
What grade were you in when you started?
6th grade.
Okay.
And so my principal had came to my mother and said there would be a good for me. So at first I'm like, no, I don't know. I thought it was boring and that.
And is it boring?
No, not really. No.
Are you good?
Yeah. So my mom was like, I should try it, and I didn't really want to. So it took weeks of convincing. And so I actually tried it. And at first it was boring because I didn't know how to play or nothing. But then I kept doing it, and it actually got fun because I started winning.
Winning is good. Thank you, Tamaya. Which of you wants to go? Can you share how you got started and remind everyone of your name again?
My name is Tahir Levi, and how I got started was I was going to another program named Shicey, and then Mr. Oku came down and was like, you should join chess because it'll be good for you, just like Tamaya said.
Right.
And then the next day I joined. So that was the way
you had a friend who encouraged you to do it. Right? Is that what you just said? Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's what I heard. That's awesome. That's worth a round of applause. Christina, share your story.
My name is Christina Williams, and the thing that I like about chess is that you get different opportunities to compete with different people around the world. And the way that I got in chess is they was giving out permission slips, and they announced it over the intercom after school programs. And I heard chess, and I thought it was interesting. And when I got in the room, I noticed that it wasn't a lot of girls playing chess. It was more boys than girls, and it encouraged me to think harder and get my mind more focused in chess.
Awesome. Now, either of you two want to share the coolest place that you've been because of chess? Have you been out of the state or to a different city? Where have you been? What's the best place you've been to because of chess?
The best place we've been because of chess would probably be Washington, yeah. It was kind of hot down there, but Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
It was kind of hot.
Was it a little swampy? No? Okay, good.
We got the chance to go to the White House.
Did you get to go to the White House?
Yes. We didn't get to meet the president, though.
Yeah. Huh, okay. All right, you're last, but you're not least. Come step forward. You got to step out here in front of everybody. Do you have anything you want to say about chess? You can't go on a filibuster, though. Remind us of your name.
Gavin Harry.
Gavin Harry. How many siblings do you have?
3.
Are your parents happy that you're playing chess?
Yes.
Anything else that you'd like to say?
Chess rocks.
Chess rocks. That's a good way to end. I grew up playing football. I didn't really have a choice. But having a teacher who's not merely a teacher, but who's a coach. Teachers as coaches invested in their lives. All of us know that there's an incredible opportunity for teachers. So Mr. O'Cool, I always say your name wrong. Mr. O'Cool, what an awesome name, Mr. O'Cool. Mr. O'Cool, thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to say in closing? We appreciate you.
I'm hoping that, chess is not just about winning games. It is about saving lives, and that's what we're here for. We're trying to touch the lives of others. Kids would love to mentor. In fact, if any one of you wants to learn chess, they're available.
I'll teach.
We have the chess sets there, and we have the chess clocks. Anybody wants to play within 5 minutes. We have the Blitz King here. He won the national 2 years ago. So my point is that we're praying that there are generous people who want to support our team and give them the chance to earn also college scholarships. Because of all activities, chess is one where even while they're in the elementary years, they can still gain college scholarship as long as the ratings increase. But ratings cannot be increased unless they compete in rated tournaments. And rated tournaments at times are expensive. So they need to travel, they need some support to be able to increase the ratings. And everybody looks forward to a college scholarship. And to make lives better and to be able to touch lives, make difference in the lives of others, and make this world a better place to live.
Amen. Thank you. You can leave that there. Thank you all so much. Give the chess player team a round of applause. Thank you. Great job. And you all can go off right there. Thank you. So those are the types of stories that obviously warm our heart and remind us of what's possible. So thank you, Mr. O'Cool. I hope everybody has a chance to meet him. Okay, the booths. The chess team's over there. There are other booths. We're going to take a break, about 10, 15-minute break, and I will call you back to order. I want you to get some refreshment. You see the big refresh sign, network. Thank you for your patience, and hope you enjoyed the start of our program. We'll be back shortly.